I wasn't expecting much. The bar was set by what is easily the least coherent, most generic, and uninspired entry in the DCEU, and the trailer didn't sell me on any single aspect of its existence besides maybe giving me a reason to care about the shared universe it inhabits, which is currently in shambles, mind you. Despite my expectations being set astronomically low, I was still disappointed by Birds of Prey. But the movie isn't all bad. I am a sucker for good action, and Birds of Prey didn't let me down in that regard, not too much at least. Although it is difficult to maintain one's own immersion during a fight scene in which a lone 90-pound woman is physically overpowering every beefcake that comes her way, the action, style, and choreography are some of the movie's only redeeming qualities. Birds of Prey tackles fight scenes with a heightened and enjoyable aesthetic, allowing the camera to pull back and establish movement and geography so that the viewer can see what's happening clearly. The beats and hits feel deliberate, and the choreography looks like it took some planning and effort. Harley Quinn with a baseball bat was easily my favorite part of the movie. Initially, I thought that high praise was in order for how the people behind the scenes took the initiative to go their own way and intensively craft exciting fight scenes, but then I found out they got Chad Stahelski's help. You know, the man responsible for the best action in modern cinema? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm happy that directing John Wick has earned this guy a reputation for making good fight scenes, and I'm happy that he is finding more work in other action projects, but it was a bittersweet reveal for me. I thought that Birds of Prey's director and writer, Kathy Yan and Christina Hodson, had their own unique vision in mind for the action and went about realizing it during production. But no, Chad Stahelski gets the credit for this one. The most noticeable example of Stahelski's style of action comes up during Huntress's backstory. She's shown entering a restaurant to kill some mafiosos and whips out a pistol, fires from the hip, dodges and ducks to avoid return fire, and in general acts like a character ripped straight out of John Wick's criminal underworld. But even then, the entire shot is from behind her, so a lot of the action is obscured. My first instinct was to be pleased that more movies are actively taking pages from Stahelski's book, as Mission Impossible Fallout and Gemini Man had done before. While watching Birds of Prey, I thought they had obviously drawn inspiration from John Wick and The Raid for the fight scenes, and that was so much more satisfying to me than knowing that the director of one of those projects worked with them in a second unit capacity. It's like believing that your wife made you the perfect burger with her own recipe and ingredients, only to find out after the fact that she just bought you a Whopper because she wasn't willing to risk trying herself. Not saying that Birds of Prey was advertised as being Stahelski-free, I'm just saying it was a disheartening reveal for me. Beyond the action, there is also the somewhat discernible vision that the director had in mind for Birds of Prey. It is unique, it is inspired, but is not fully realized. This movie is extremely cookie-cutter except for these brief glimpses we get into the stylized vision Kathy Yan had. There are select scenes that dare to break the mold of studio-approved product, and it was disappointing to see that they didn't do more of it. That's not to say that all of the unique scenes were good, though. That moment when Harley got slapped into a musical number felt very out of place and definitely missed its stylistic mark. But things like the overindulgent comedic violence, cutaways to character introductions, and interesting vivid visual gags are merits of the movie, though sparse and weak. And those few, mild factors being Birds of Prey's redeeming qualities goes a long way to tell you how vapid and pathetic it is as a movie. The bad vastly exceeds the good on this one. For starters, the plot is not only generic and boring, but also poorly paced and not at all compelling. The only thing I had to maintain my investment throughout was the desire to see some entertaining fight scenes, a regard in which the movie didn't let me down, but that was not enough considering how much of the movie's runtime consists of clunky interactions and mediocre character development. There was a scene in which Huntress visited the lobby of Harley's apartment building, and it was assumed that she was there to kill Harley, like everyone else in Gotham was, but the whole point of the scene was actually to give us her backstory and motivation. I'm pretty sure Huntress does not appear again until the third act, and because the movie thinks you have a room temperature IQ, it is never explained why Huntress even showed up at Harley's doorstep in the first place. They crammed her backstory into the middle of the movie and then allowed the plot to carry on normally as though they couldn't find any place to comfortably fit her into. They had to make room for the real characters like Harley Quinn, who admittedly is not too bad. Margot Robbie's performance is enjoyable even if occasionally cringe-inducing, and I had no trouble believing that she was Harley Quinn. She embodied the character's erratic and glib nature and did a fine job in the specific action shots from which her stunt double was clearly absent. Second strongest character is arguably Black Canary, who gets a convincing performance from Journey Smollett Bell. She does a decent job with what she's given, but is severely lacking in motivation. Then comes Black Mask, who is really just Ewan McGregor having fun. I'd say that star power like Robbie and McGregor was wasted on Birds of Prey if not for how much they seem to enjoy their performances. Renee Montoya and Huntress fall into similar categories for me, not adding enough to the plot or the world and feeling as though they're in the movie just to tick boxes. Comparing Mary Lizzie Winnie's performance here to her performance in Gemini Man makes me appreciate her far more as an actress and makes me even more disheartened as to the amount of potential the writers wasted. But the award for worst performance has got to go to little Ella J. Basco. I don't know if she's at all adequate as an actor, but if she is, then it is not discernible from her acting as Cassie Kane. Her performance was the one that took me out of the movie most consistently, and her role felt the most token-like of any character. As far as world building is concerned, Birds of Prey serves as a connected but mostly independent standalone, meaning that while it does make references to the greater DCEU throughout, it stands strong enough on its own to not need to watch any other movies to fully appreciate it. Harley makes it crystal clear that she and the Joker broke up. That's all you need to know, and the story functions just fine without any additional shared universe knowledge. The most obscure reference to Suicide Squad is possibly when Harley acknowledges a wanted poster for Captain Boomerang during the precinct break-in. It was a nice little tip of the fedora, and it didn't detract from the scene. For the most part, however, Birds of Prey only serves as a detriment to the rules established in Suicide Squad. It used to be that superpowered renegades were locked up and regulated under Amanda Waller's jurisdiction, but now a clown with a hyena and bleached skin and a woman with a reputation for having a killer voice are free to roam Gotham as they please. In Suicide Squad, Gotham City was under Batman's brutal protection, but in Birds of Prey, he is inexplicably absent while Harley and the gang tear shit up. I mean, I know why Ben Affleck isn't there to play Batman, but that's neither here nor there. In Suicide Squad, Harley is rightfully depicted as a careless and twisted psychopath, but Birds of Prey shows us her being far more down-to-earth and, dare I say, relatable than ever. She no longer possesses the insane charm she did in Suicide Squad and might as well be a different character for it. Birds of Prey, while a noble attempt at an inspired anti-hero team-up movie, is not as compelling or unique as the writer and director would like you to believe. The movie has some excellent fight scene choreography that is depressingly overshadowed by the sheer mediocrity of the characters, plot, and execution. That is the review. If you wanted to hear my review of Birds of Prey, then it is now over, and I'm going to use the rest of the video to take a massive left turn and talk about issues mostly tangential to criticism of the movie itself, such as the excessively shoehorned-in messages about sexism. In case you forgot, men are, en masse, chauvinistic pigs, and Birds of Prey is a film that isn't afraid of commenting on such taboo and underrepresented topics. After all, in recent years, there just haven't been any prominent pieces of media to include such stunning and brave feminist activism in their design, besides Ghostbusters, The Last Jedi, Captain Marvel, Dark Fate, and Batwoman. The worst example of this blatant sexism has got to be the men surrounding Renee Montoya. She is a veteran detective who lost a career-defining promotion to her male partner because every human being around her is unbelievably condescending to women. And when I say it's unbelievable, I mean that the sexist characters around her are total caricatures and not authentically portrayed, as though the writer's idea of a real-world sexist comes straight out of a Saturday morning cartoon. Montoya visits a crime scene early in the movie and is portrayed as the only remotely competent person in the entire police force. What purpose could this intentional writing choice possibly serve in the grand scheme of the scene? To make it abundantly clear to the audience that her male partner is a bungling imbecile who gets all the credit for Montoya's work purely because he's a man and she's a woman. And later in the movie, after she busts dozens of Black Mask's thugs with help from other main characters, her male captain gets all the credit despite Montoya being the only cop present to have been able to arrest them. She draws the short straw yet again, purely because she's a woman. This shit is frustrating. How simple do these people think their own viewer base is? How little do they think of their target demographic that they feel it necessary to repeatedly echo the message, sexism bad, and shove it down our throats through unrealistically two-dimensional characters? How infantile must you be to derive any value from such superficial vacuous pandering, and how has this trend gone on for so long in Hollywood? They know it's not making them any money. They know that literally shoehorning propaganda into their movies only appeals to a minute fraction of their audience, so why do they keep doing it? We've observed this phenomenon enough times over the past 4 years, at least, to draw up a conclusive cycle of wokeness. And it goes something like this. Product markets itself as being woke. Product performs suboptimally in the box office or other relevant revenue intake. People cover product for flopping. Fans and or creators of product blame bigoted straight white men for the product's failure. Rinse and repeat. I don't have a marketing team or PR department at my disposal, yet I can see that forcing regressive, niche ideology into a movie or TV show is not conducive to its success. At this point, I am more than willing to attribute motive to their deranged creative decisions. They aren't profiting from the inclusion of politically correct messaging in their products, not financially, not in terms of appealing to the average person, not even in terms of making coherent quality content. They are failing, but they continue to push these narratives through their work. And the only sensible conclusion I can draw from this ineffective virtue signaling is that the people in charge of these creative decisions have an agenda. I struggle to believe that Hollywood elites truly believe the politically correct nonsense they so readily spout. I've seen enough examples of their hypocrisy to know that the ideology they pretend to value is something that they expect the masses to respect and follow, but not something they themselves ever plan to adhere to. So no, I do not even for a moment believe that they believe in the messagery they force into their work. I think it really is a matter of setting one rule for themselves and one rule for everyone else, which raises a less conclusive matter. their goal. It isn't totally clear what these influential personalities expect to achieve by shoehorning propaganda into their work, but it certainly isn't a better rapport with fans. The way I think about it is, the fundamental ideas around which their pandering revolves focus on offensiveness, inclusivity, and identity politics. This would entail putting more focus on an individual's group identity and immutable characteristics rather than their unique personal traits and attributes. It means laboring to include as many quote-unquote minorities as possible while simultaneously and not at all discreetly excluding quote-unquote majorities. It means trying your utmost not to offend people who fall above straight white males on the hierarchy of victimhood. And what could this social engineering result in besides creating a literal dystopia? If art continues to depict characters behaving in accordance with and actively spreading political correctness, then eventually people will start to believe that that is how humans genuinely are. It's been plus minus 5 years of this egregious genuflecting, and for now at least, the average person knows better than to fall for it. But given another few decades, if this trend continues in pop culture, it will become a reality. After enough time and repetition has allowed for the message to ingrain itself in the public consciousness, people in the future will start to believe that men today were as sexist as they are portrayed in Birds of Prey. They will begin adopting all the batshit crazy philosophies Hollywood so brazenly crams into its products. And worst of all, people will begin walking on eggshells in a constant attempt not to offend any high-ranking members of the victimhood ladder. This will only lead to some variation of an Orwellian thought-policing society in which individuals persistently self-censor in order to maintain their position on the social food chain. Call it a stretch, but saying that shameless pandering in movies now could lead to a dystopia decades down the line isn't so far out when you consider that Western nations are already policing people's tweets and censoring feedback on public forums. And the last thing I'd like to address is the annoying subculture of reactionary YouTube content with regards to politically correct media in particular. Now, this is not me in any way trying to call out or expose any specific channel or YouTuber. This is just me griping about an incessant and potentially exploitative trend among pop culture YouTubers. You know, those channels that put out daily videos about the latest overtly woke news article or instance of an out-of-touch celebrity blaming their problems on the patriarchy. Their videos are anywhere between 2 and 30 minutes long, but often just past the 10-minute mark, and usually feature the video author's face cam in the corner while displaying relevant low-effort visuals in the background. These YouTubers are in many cases representative of the common man, and do a good job of vocally opposing and debunking the political correctness I condemned earlier on. Now that you're clued in as to who I'm talking about, I'd like to draw your attention to a noticeable pattern in their coverage of SJW hysteria. Remember that little diagram I made to demonstrate the cycle of wokeness? Well, I'm currently talking about the 5th step of the process, which can be summed up as YouTubers cover fans and or creators' outrage at the coverage of their products flopping. This step effectively exacerbates the amount of unrest created by the product itself and is most of the time just unnecessary. Like, Birds of Prey was a flop. Everyone in their right mind could see that and understand why. So we get some YouTubers covering the movie's failure, often citing its woke messagery as the fundamental cause, and reminding us that their predictions of the movie's failure came true. That's all well and good. But then, like the sore losers they are, the fans and creators of Birds of Prey rush to its defense to castigate straight white males for its poor performance from atop their pretentious pedestals, thereby giving YouTubers more material to work with. It's not long then before they have new videos covering this latest wave of politically correct insanity, and at that point it's just beating a dead low-hanging fruit. Now don't get me wrong, these YouTubers are making decent content and are by far not the worst culprits of clickbait on the site, but their video titles and thumbnails often fall into the realm of rage bait, playing on people's collective anger over establishment politics and media's proclivity to include and worship said politics. Rather than drawing the viewer's attention with a sexually appealing thumbnail or seemingly impossible premise, rage bait seeks to exploit our more severe retributive feelings for the subject matter. I've got no hard numbers on this, but I'd imagine that a significant portion of that YouTuber's viewer base is only upset at all because they echo the irritated sentiment espoused by the YouTuber in earlier videos. Not only are these channels banking on average people's outrage at woke culture, they may very well be responsible for perpetuating the outrage from which they are benefiting. Honestly, this is just a hot take, but isn't it a little backwards to mock SJWs for their thin skin and ridiculous beliefs while simultaneously ranting at length about their frustrating exploits, thus facilitating a subculture of people who watch YouTube videos to be informed on the latest thing to be outraged at? And it certainly doesn't help when you make your video title something as blatant as SJWs furious over new Birds of Prey reviews. Blame men? Seriously, people, we are better than that. Now, I raised 2 very different issues in this review. One was to do with the potential consequences of mainstreaming politically correct thought as it is portrayed in art, and the other was about an annoying trend I observed on the internet. These topics are in no way comparable, and I don't want to be misconstrued as placing equal value on them. And that about wraps it up for me. As always, I love discussion and debate, so if you have any criticism of my review of Birds of Prey and the subsequent totally relevant arguments therein, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.